Welcome back, everyone. We're moving into our next exploration today, looking at lesson 284 from the course.
And the title is quite direct. I can elect to change all thoughts that hurt.
It is, and it immediately presents us with one of the course's, let's say, most demanding ideas. The statement that pain itself is impossible.
That line can certainly land hard, especially when you're experiencing physical pain or deep emotional sorrow. It can sound almost dismissive, can't it?
It really can. But it's crucial to grasp the distinction the course is making right from the start. It isn't saying your body doesn't feel things, injury, discomfort, sensation. That's part of the physical experience.
The focus is on the meaning that gets overlaid onto that sensation or event, the suffering part, the mental anguish, the story about the pain that's seen as belonging to the mind's narrative, not the physical reality itself.
So the body might register an ache, but the suffering that comes from thoughts rooted in the belief in separation.
Exactly. The whole structure of the world as we perceive it is based on this idea of being separate from our source, from each other. Pain, whether physical or emotional, becomes instant proof for the ego that this separation is not only real, but also threatening.
And the ego uses that proof to build its case, its story of suffering.
That translation from sensation to suffering is where the grief, the fear, the sense of loss truly takes hold in the mind.
So today our aim is to look closely at how we can begin to unlearn that suffering, step by step. We want to get practical about telling the difference between what the body feels and the psychological pain the mind often chooses to hold on to.
A very necessary distinction if we want to apply this lesson.
Let's begin by hearing the lesson itself read aloud. I'll read the main part and then you can read the prayer. Lesson 284. I can elect to change all thoughts that hurt. Loss is not loss when properly perceived. Pain is impossible. There is no grief with any cause at all. And suffering of any kind is nothing but a dream. This is the truth, at first to be but said and then repeated many times, and next to be accepted as but partly true, with many reservations, then to be considered seriously more and more, and finally accepted as the truth. I can elect to change all thoughts that hurt. And I would go beyond these words today and past all reservations and arrive at full acceptance of the truth in them.
Father, what you have given cannot hurt, so grief and pain must be impossible. Let me not fail to trust in you today, accepting but the joyous as your gifts, accepting but the joyous as the truth.
Thank you. Those opening lines really take us straight back to the course's fundamental view of the world, don't they? That it's a dream.
A dream sustained by our thinking, specifically ego-based thinking, where things like pain and loss feel incredibly, undeniably real.
And the invitation here is to look beyond those intense feelings, to work towards accepting a deeper truth that our essential self is actually immune to loss and pain.
That immunity is precisely what the ecosystem fights against recognizing. Pain becomes a cornerstone for the ego's identity. Experiencing hurt seems to confirm the ego's narrative. Look, I suffered this terrible thing, therefore I must be this separate, vulnerable self. My existence is defined by this wound.
It turns an experience into a justification for its own existence. The moment we feel hurt or let down or attacked, the ego rushes in to build this fortress of grievance around it.
That's a great way to put it. A fortress built with resentment, blame, and self-pity. And we defend that fortress fiercely, don't we? In our thoughts, in conversations.
Oh, absolutely. I've caught myself doing it, defending the hurt, almost as if letting go of the pain means losing who I am, losing the identity of the one who was wronged.
And because that defense mechanism is so strong, so ingrained, the lesson doesn't expect us to just flip a switch.
It acknowledges that we need time and practice. It lays out those specific stages, which I find incredibly helpful for tracking my own process.
Me too. Stage 1 is simply saying the words, I can elect to change all thoughts that hurt.
Even if you don't believe them yet. Yeah, right, tell that to my aching back or whatever the current pain is.
That initial skepticism isn't just okay, it's expected, maybe even necessary. The act of repeating the words, even with doubt, starts to create a tiny bit of space. A space between the suffering self and the part of you that can observe the suffering.
It's like the first crack in the illusion.
Then comes stage 2. Accepting it as partly true, but with reservations. This is where I think many of us spend a lot of time.
Definitely. You accept the principle intellectually, maybe when things are calm, but then a real trigger hits a job loss, a relationship crisis, and boom, the reservations rush in.
The reservations sound like, okay, I get it in theory, but what about this specific situation? But what about chronic physical pain? But what about when someone is truly cruel? These buts are the ego protecting its territory.
Protecting its special, unique suffering that it insists must be real. We want the peace the Course talks about, but we're still attached to proving our pain is valid.
And holding on to both the desire for peace and the defense of pain is utterly exhausting mentally. It creates real stress.
So stage 3 marks a significant shift. This is where we start considering the truth seriously more and more.
This is the active practice phase. It means when that familiar hurt or fear flares up, you consciously pause. You ask yourself, is this thought actually helping me find peace, or is it just reinforcing my old story of being a victim?
You're making a deliberate commitment to question the thoughts that cause pain, even when it feels incredibly difficult.
So instead of the automatic reaction, say, someone cuts you off in traffic and you immediately think, what an idiot, they have no respect. You might pause and choose differently. Maybe think, my peace doesn't depend on their driving.
It requires a real willingness, which the lesson points to when it says, and I would go beyond these words today and past all reservations.
And that leads to the 4th stage, arriving at full acceptance of the truth in them. This isn't about feeling ecstatic all the time. It's about a steady, grounded knowing.
And knowing that your core self, your reality, is fundamentally untouched by the ups and downs of the world's drama.
The focus shifts from constantly managing painful thoughts to recognizing they have no inherent power over your true being. They become irrelevant to who you really are.
And that journey from reservation to full acceptance hinges on getting crystal clear about where the suffering is actually coming from. We have to stop mixing up physical sensation with psychological suffering.
Yes, because if we keep confusing the two, we'll stay stuck in those reservations, unable to fully embrace the lesson's truth. The mind needs to see how it separates the two, how it adds the layer of suffering.
Often we weld them together, don't we?
Yeah.
The physical event and our mental story about it become this one big, overwhelming thing called pain.
We do. I have this vivid memory from when I was a kid. I was coming home from a sleepover at a friend's house. Her mom dropped me off, and as I got out of the car, slam, I caught my thumb right in the car door.
Ouch. I can feel that. Immediate, intense physical shock.
Oh, absolutely. Just searing physical pain. I remember managing a smile and waving goodbye as if nothing major had happened. I was already postponing the emotional reaction. I lived on the top floor of this big apartment building. I clutched my hand, which was throbbing like crazy, and just kept telling myself, I'll cry when I get inside. I'll cry when I get inside. I walked past people in the hall, totally focused on holding it together until I reached my apartment door. I got inside, shut the door, and realized the apartment was empty. No one was home. Complete silence. And it was the strangest thing. I stood there totally alone, my thumb still aching terribly. The physical pain was absolutely present. But the urge to cry, the need for someone to see it and comfort me, the whole drama I'd geared up for, it just evaporated.
Really?
It completely deflated. The psychological suffering felt like this narrative I had constructed, this layer I had added on top of the physical sensation. Without someone to perform for, someone to react, the narrative lost its energy. Crying suddenly felt optional, not inevitable.
That illustrates the lesson beautifully. The undeniable physical event, the slam thumb versus the story about it, the need for witness, the drama around the injury, that gap is where our election happens.
If the suffering needs a story, or an audience, or a justification, then it's a mental construct, not an inherent property of our being.
We do this constantly, fusing the event with the interpretation. Think about something complex, like getting a serious health diagnosis. The physical aspects, the symptoms, the limitations, the discomfort, those are experienced by the body. They are facts within the physical realm.
But the suffering often comes from the thoughts piled on top. My life is over. Why me? I'm being punished. I'm just a burden now.
Those thoughts create the mental anguish. The diagnosis is the physical situation. The suffering is the mental distress that arises from believing that this situation has destroyed your worth or your identity.
And this is where the Course brings in forgiveness, not necessarily to make the physical condition vanish, but to forgive the thoughts that insist the condition has damaged your true self, your holiness.
Forgiveness, then, is recognizing that nothing real has actually been harmed by the event. It's releasing the story that says this illness or this job loss or this betrayal defines you as broken or less than whole.
And when you release that grievance story, the mind lets go of its tight grip on the suffering. Peace can then be present, even alongside physical discomfort.
That's the practical application right there. Every time disappointment hits, maybe significant financial stress, the facts are the bills due.
Right, those are the circumstances.
The suffering comes from the thoughts. I'll never get out of this. This proves I'm a failure, incompetent.
And electing to change those thoughts, as the lesson suggests, doesn't magically alter the bank balance, but it dissolves the mental distress, the panic, the self-blame that clouds judgment and prevents peaceful, effective action.
You separate the problem itself from the painful story about the problem.
Which brings us back to that core line. I can elect to change all thoughts that hurt. It places the power and the responsibility squarely back in the mind's capacity to choose.
It's an assertion of our inherent agency, which the ego often tries to deny.
The ego prefers victimhood. If pain just happens to me, I'm justified in my suffering. But if I elect the thoughts that hurt, then I also have the power to elect thoughts that don't.
It restores our ability to choose peace.
And when we truly commit to making that choice, forgiveness isn't just an occasional tool. It becomes the mind's default way of operating.
We need to keep clarifying what Course forgiveness means, though. It's not about saying bad behavior was okay or pretending something didn't happen.
No, it's not condoning or forgetting in the usual sense. It's the deeper recognition that the essential reality of who you are and who everyone else is cannot actually be damaged by anything that happens in the world of illusion.
So if I forgive someone who betrayed my trust, I'm not saying the betrayal was fine. I'm releasing the story I created that said their action had the power to diminish my inherent worth or destroy my peace. I take back the power I gave their action over my mind.
You release yourself from the suffering you are inflicting on yourself by holding on to the grievance.
Now, a common question comes up here. If this is true, if pain is ultimately impossible for the self, how do we interact with people who are obviously in deep pain or grief? A grieving friend, for example.
That requires true compassion, which is rooted in this understanding. If your friend is lost in a story of terrible loss, simply mirroring their fear and distress, what we often think of as sympathy actually reinforces the illusion for both of you.
It's like saying, yes, you're right. This terrible thing is real and it has broken you.
Which isn't truly helpful. The role of someone practicing this is to offer presence from a place of quiet strength, remembering the friend's underlying wholeness, even if they can't see it themselves.
You can acknowledge their sadness, their human experience of loss, without buying into the narrative that their eternal self has been harmed.
Exactly. When you sit with that grieving friend, the most loving thing is to hold the thought, silently perhaps. Love remains untouched here. You're present with their human pain, but you don't join them in the dream of devastation.
That steady, non-judgmental presence, anchored in the truth of their wholeness, is the real gift. It's a practical application of electing peace, not just for yourself, but as an offering.
And this distinction, physical state versus mental story, is something we practice constantly. Take simple physical tiredness. The body needs rest. That's a physical fact.
The suffering only kicks in when we add thoughts like, I shouldn't be this tired, or I have to push through this to be worthy.
We have to become aware of those sneaky narratives that judge or condemn the body's state. Choosing to question them, realizing tiredness isn't failure, discomfort isn't proof of inadequacy, that's the work. The prayer asks us to accept, but the joyous as the truth. That joy isn't about forcing a smile, It's the quiet joy of recognizing that the truth about you is constant and unaffected by the world's shifting circumstances.
It's the relief of knowing the conflict isn't ultimately real.
And as we practice this consistently, the need to cling to painful thoughts starts to lessen. We see that defending the hurt was the only thing giving the ego its seeming power over our peace.
We arrive at a place where peace isn't dependent on things going right externally. It depends only on our internal election.
It's a shift from trying to manage thoughts to resting in direct knowing. We're just undoing the mistaken belief in separation.
Returning to the peace that was always there,
Yeah.
underneath the noise.
Let's take a moment now, if you'd like, to practice this directly. If you're in a place where you can perhaps close your eyes or just soften your gaze for a moment,
Okay.
bring to mind one specific thought that's been causing you some hurt or worry lately. Maybe a recurring concern or a feeling of resentment or guilt.
Just let it come up.
Don't dive into analyzing it or trying to fix the situation it represents. Simply notice the thought itself. See it as a mental pattern you've been holding on to.
Now, holding that thought gently in awareness, ask yourself inwardly, maybe using the lesson's idea, what grievance is this thought defending? And what if peace is actually available right now, just behind this thought I'm clutching? Now, just take a breath. And in your imagination, you might picture yourself gently releasing that thought, handing it over to your own inner wisdom, to the quiet space within you.
That small gesture, that willingness to release, even for an instant, is how the unlearning happens. It's a remembering of the peace that's always present.
Pain truly begins in the thought, not in the underlying truth of your being. Each time you question a thought that hurts, you loosen the grip of the world's dream.
You edge closer to recognizing your inherent wholeness.
And changing the thought isn't about denying that you felt something. It's about ending the story that made the feeling painful. You replace the narrative of lack or attack with the simple fact of your constant connection to peace.
The whole course is really this gentle process of undoing. It's guiding us back from that exhausting belief in loss to the simple, restful memory of our wholeness.
The power to choose that rests with us right now. We can elect peace.
Thank you for exploring Lesson 284 with us today. It's always insightful to walk through these lessons together.
It is. And we're curious about your experience. We tried incorporating that brief meditative moment today. We'd love to hear if that felt helpful, or if you prefer sticking strictly to the step-by-step practical discussion we often do.
Your feedback helps us shape these conversations. You can always reach us by email at acim@theworldharmonyproject.org.
Or find us on TikTok and YouTube. Just search for @The World Harmony Project. You can also leave comments right here on Spotify. Let us know how you're applying these ideas.
We appreciate you being here and engaging with this material alongside us.
We look forward to continuing with Lesson 285.